Revenge office stories. My startup fired me, said I was redundant. They gave me a cardboard box for my things, a hollow "We wish you the best," and then they showed me the door. They really, truly thought they could just get rid of me. But they forgot one tiny detail. They forgot that my redundant job involved creating the one-of-a-kind invention their entire company was built on. And they forgot the most important part. The patent, the legal document giving them the right to exist, wasn't in the company's name. It was in mine. What do you do when the company you poured your soul into calls you worthless? You let them. You let them walk you out that door. And then you wait for the perfect moment to show them just how valuable you really are. It feels like another lifetime, but it really wasn't that long ago. Just a few years back, Innovatech wasn't some sleek company. It was a dream we sketched out on a greasy pizza box in a cramped apartment that always smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. There were 3 of us then. Me, the quiet coder who saw solutions in tangled lines of logic. There was Ben, our hardware guy, a wizard who could make circuit boards sing. And then there was Derek. Derek was our frontman. He had the charisma, the perfect smile, and this incredible talent for making you believe his vision was not just possible, but inevitable. He could sell water to a drowning man, which is exactly what you need when you're a broke startup with nothing but a crazy idea. Our idea was crazy, all right, but it was my crazy idea. I called it Synapse. In simple terms, Synapse was a data compression algorithm, but that's like calling a supernova a bright light. It was a revolution. It could take massive data sets, think genomic sequences, weather models, financial data, and shrink them to a tiny fraction of their size without losing a single byte of information. It didn't just make data smaller, it made it smarter and faster than anything else out there. It was the key to unlocking next-gen AI, real-time analytics, and a dozen other billion-dollar industries. And it was my baby. It wasn't something I whipped up on company time. Synapse was born from my postdoctoral research, from years of sleepless nights fueled by lukewarm tea and a stubborn refusal to believe something was impossible. I'd already filed a provisional patent on my own dime, long before Innovatech was even a registered LLC. It was my life's work. When Derek saw what I had, his eyes lit up with that manic, visionary gleam. "This is it," he said, pacing my tiny living room. "This isn't just a product, Sarah. This is the foundation of an empire." For a while, it felt like we were actually building one. The early days were a blur of 18-hour workdays, instant noodles, and the kind of creative energy that feels like lightning in a bottle. We were a team, a family even. We celebrated every tiny victory, every debugged line of code. Derek was the sun we all orbited, and he made sure we felt it. "We're all in this together," he'd say, slinging an arm around my shoulder. "Equity, titles, all that corporate junk, we'll sort it out later. Right now, we build. We'll sort it out later." That was his mantra, and I believed him. I was a creator, an engineer. I cared about the work, not the paperwork. So when it was time to convert my provisional patent into a full utility patent, the company brought in slick, expensive lawyers who spoke a language of jargon I barely understood. Derek assured me it was all standard procedure. "Just get it locked down so no one can steal our magic," he'd said with a wink. The key document, the one that would transfer ownership of the patent from me to Innovatech, was called a patent assignment agreement. It's a critical piece of paper. The lawyers drafted it. It sat in a folder on my desk for weeks. Every time I mentioned it, Derek would wave it off. "Sarah, you're a founder. This is your company as much as it is mine. We're a team. Sign it when you have a sec, no rush. Building the product is what matters." Here's a crucial lesson they don't teach you in coding boot camps. In the United States, patent rights automatically belong to the inventor, not their employer, unless there's a specific, signed agreement that assigns those rights over. My job wasn't inventor for hire. I was a co-founder bringing my own pre-existing invention to the table. That unsigned document wasn't just forgotten paperwork. It was a time bomb. And in my trust, in my belief in our team, I left it sitting there. I was so focused on building Derek's empire that I never stopped to make sure my own name was on the deed. The change was gradual, then it was sudden. It started with money. Our seed funding round was a huge success. Derek, in his element, charmed the venture capitalists, and $12 million landed in Innovatech's bank account. Overnight, everything felt different. The pizza and passion culture was replaced by catered lunches and mandatory synergy meetings. We moved into a sleek new office with glass walls and deeply uncomfortable ergonomic chairs. New faces started showing up, people with fancy MBAs and titles like VP of Strategic Growth. They walked around with an air of detached authority, talking about acronyms that had nothing to do with actually building things. The worst of them was Brenda, our new Chief Operating Officer. She seemed to be powered by kale smoothies and a deep contempt for anyone who made things. She was Derek's prize hire, a supposed operational genius who saw our beautiful, chaotic process not as a feature, but as a bug. Everything had to be quantified and squeezed into a 2-week sprint. My lab, once a haven of innovation, became just another cost center on her spreadsheets. My role started to shrink. I, the architect of Synapse, was now expected to justify my time in 15-minute increments. My ideas, which once went straight from my brain to the whiteboard, now had to climb a torturous ladder of project managers, often coming back mangled and diluted. Derek, my partner, became distant. He was always in meetings with the new team, discussing market penetration and burn rate. When I tried to talk to him about the tech, about the next step for Synapse, he'd flash that practice smile and say, "That's great, Sarah. Run it by Brenda. See where it fits in the Q3 roadmap." I felt like a ghost in the machine I'd built. The soul of the company was being systematically replaced with a sterile corporate shell, and I was being pushed to the margins. I was a relic of the old way. The end came on a Tuesday. I was called into a small, sterile conference room with a fake plant in the corner. Derek was there, staring at his phone. Brenda was there, sitting perfectly upright with a thin, predatory smile. And there was a man from HR I'd never seen before. That's when you know. Brenda started, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sincerity that makes your skin crawl. "Sarah," she said, "as you know, Innovatech is entering a new phase of its growth. We've been analyzing our organizational structure to optimize for efficiency." She talked for 5 minutes, a masterclass in corporate doublespeak, using words like streamlining, synergizing, and right-sizing. She never once mentioned my work or my contributions. I just sat there, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. Finally, she got to it. "And so, as part of this strategic realignment, your role has been identified as redundant." Redundant. The word just hung there. Redundant. My creation was running on every server. It was the star of every sales pitch. It was the entire reason those $12 million existed. How could I be redundant to it? I looked at Derek. He glanced up from his phone for a fraction of a second before his eyes darted away. He couldn't even look at me. The man who called me his partner, who built his dream on the back of my work, couldn't grant me the dignity of a direct gaze as he threw me away. It was never us. It was always him. I wasn't a partner. I was a resource. And now I had been fully extracted. The HR guy slid a folder across the table. "This is your separation agreement. It outlines your severance package. It's quite generous, but it is contingent on your signature." I didn't even open it. I just pushed it back. "I'll have my lawyer review it," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Brenda's smile tightened, a flicker of annoyance. "That's your right," she said, "but it's a standard agreement. We'd like to get this wrapped up today." "I'm sure you would," I replied, standing up. "My lawyer will be in touch." I walked out of that room, leaving the folder, Derek, and their soulless company behind. My things were already packed in a sad little box. As I walked out of that glass building for the last time, the word echoed in my mind. Redundant. They had no idea what that word was about to cost them. The first 24 hours were a blur of shock and betrayal. I went home to my apartment, the same one where Synapse was born, and just sat in silence, replaying that meeting, Brenda's smug face, Derek's cowardice. The sheer audacity of being called redundant by the very people whose paychecks existed because of my work. But as the shock wore off, something else bubbled up. Cold, clarifying anger. They didn't just fire me. They erased me. They thought I was just a cog they could remove now that the machine was running. On the second day, I started digging through old files, looking for anything. Then I saw it, a plain manila folder at the bottom of a drawer. The label in my own handwriting said, Innovatech IP Docs. My heart started pounding. I opened it, and there it was right on top, the patent assignment agreement. And there on the signature line for the signor, for me, was blank space. I never signed it. In the chaos of the early days and Derek's constant refrains of "we'll sort it out later," it was forgotten, by them and foolishly by me. I dug deeper and found the official patent grant from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I scanned down to the section marked Assignee. My breath caught. It didn't say Innovatech Incorporated. It said Sarah Jenkins, San Francisco, California. I owned it. It wasn't a shared asset. It wasn't company property. According to the United States government, U.S. Patent Number 9,824,301, the legal bedrock of Innovatech's entire valuation, belonged to me and me alone. The anger morphed into something heady and powerful. It was like I'd been playing chess and just realized my pawn was actually a queen. They didn't just fire an employee. They had, with breathtaking incompetence, fired their landlord, and they were about to be served an eviction notice. This is where it gets good. I called my lawyer, Maria, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who specialized in intellectual property. I explained the situation, my voice trembling with rage and adrenaline. She called me back an hour later. I could hear the smile in her voice. "Sarah," she said, "oh, Sarah, they have made a catastrophic, company-ending mistake." She confirmed everything. Without that signed assignment, Innovatech had no legal right to the patent. They couldn't sell it, license it, or even technically use it. She did caution that they might try to argue for shop rights, a limited license because I used company resources to refine the invention. But that's a weak defense. It wouldn't let them sell products or stop me from licensing Synapse to their biggest competitor. Their empire was built on my land, and they didn't even have a lease. My first instinct was to burn them to the ground. But Maria was smarter. "No," she said calmly. "Revenge is a dish best served cold, and very expensively. We're not going to act now. We're going to let them dig their own grave a little deeper." So I did nothing. I went quiet. I let them think I was just a scorned employee. Weeks turned into a month. They were on a marketing blitz, launching a new suite of products powered by Innovatech's proprietary Synapse engine. Derek was in a tech magazine smugly talking about our groundbreaking in-house technology. Every press release was another shovelful of dirt on their own corporate grave. Then they escalated things. I received an aggressive letter from Innovatech's law firm, demanding I immediately sign the exit paperwork. They were threatening legal action. I scanned the attachments, and there it was, buried on page 17, a brand new clause that wasn't there before, trying to get me to irrevocably assign all right, title, and interest in any and all intellectual property. They were trying to trick me into signing away my life's work in a routine severance form. They weren't just incompetent. They were deceitful. I forwarded the email to Maria with a simple note. "I believe this is what you were waiting for." Her reply was instant. "Oh, yes. They just handed us the gun, the bullet, and a signed confession. This is perfect. It's time to get to work." We chose a Thursday morning. It was the day of Innovatech's quarterly all-hands meeting, and the day before a major conference where Derek was the keynote speaker. The timing was deliberate, cruel, and perfect. At 9:01 a.m., just as Derek was likely stepping on stage, Maria hit send. The email was a masterpiece of legal devastation, sent directly to Derek, Brenda, and every member of the board of directors. The subject line was simple: urgent legal notice. Cease and desist regarding willful patent infringement of U.S. patent number 9,824,301. I wish I could have been a fly on that wall. I imagined Derek mid-sentence about synergistic market disruption, seeing his phone buzz. Then Brenda's. Then the chairman of the board. I picture the confused glances, the tapping on screens, and the dawning horror spreading across their faces. The letter was brutal. It stated that Innovatech was willfully infringing on a patent legally owned by their recently terminated employee, Ms. Sarah Jenkins. It demanded they immediately cease all sale, marketing, and use of any products containing the Synapse algorithm. It was a kill switch, delivered via PDF. The letter also highlighted their own lawyer's recent email as a bad faith attempt to fraudulently obtain my property. Maria explained this elevated it to willful infringement, which could entitle us to triple damages in court. For 3 hours, there was the loudest silence I had ever heard. Then, at 12:15 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID said Derek. I let it ring 4 times, then answered. Hello. Sarah? Sarah, thank God. He sounded breathless, panicked. The cocksure CEO was gone. Listen, there's been a huge misunderstanding. A clerical error. This email from your lawyer, it's insane. Is it? I asked, my voice flat. Yes. We can sort this out. We're a team, remember? This is just paperwork. I'm looking at your severance offer right now. We can even double it. Triple it. Just call off your lawyer. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Derek, I said, his name tasting like ash. A few weeks ago, you sat there and told me I was redundant. You couldn't even look me in the eye. Now, it seems my redundant work is the only thing of value your company has. So no, we are not going to sort this out. There was a stunned silence. This isn't a negotiation, I continued, my voice cold as steel. It's a notification. Your company is illegally using my private property. You attempted to fraudulently acquire it. Your next communication should not be with me. It should be from your legal counsel to mine. Sarah, please, he whispered, his voice cracking. You can't do this. You'll destroy the company. And I delivered the final blow. You're wrong, Derek, I said softly. I'm not destroying the company. You already did that when you decided I was redundant. Then I hung up. I blocked his number. The key had turned. The lock was set. If you're enjoying this story of corporate karma, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps out, and it lets me know you want more stories like this. Okay, back to the spectacular implosion. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. News like this travels fast. Derek's keynote was abruptly canceled due to a personal emergency. The company's private stock value plummeted to near zero overnight. That glowing tech magazine article was hastily updated with a humiliating addendum about a developing intellectual property dispute. Innovatech's lawyers, humbled and panicked, were on the phone with Maria within the hour. They tried a desperate Hail Mary claiming shop rights. Maria was ready. She calmly explained that even if they could prove shop rights, it would only grant a limited, non-transferable right for internal use. It wouldn't let them sell products, license the tech, or justify their valuation. And the real killer, it wouldn't stop me from licensing Synapse to their biggest competitor. The threat hung in the air like a guillotine. Their next move was to beg. An insulting offer landed in Maria's inbox. Her reply was a single sentence: "We are not entertaining offers at this time." The pressure was immense. Their investors, who had poured in $12 million, were furious and preparing their own lawsuits against Derek and the board for misrepresentation. They'd been sold a castle that was really a cardboard cutout. A week later, a new 7-figure offer came in. It was a clear sign of desperation. I was tempted, I admit. It was enough money to disappear and never think about them again. But then I thought about that cold conference room. I thought about the word redundant. I thought about being a woman in tech whose work was dismissed. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the principle. No, I told Maria. Reject it. Maria, the strategist, agreed. They're bleeding cash every day, she said. Their products are off the market. Their investors are suing them. Their reputation is shot. They have no leverage. We have all of it. So we waited. We let them sweat. We let the legal bills pile up. The multi-million-dollar startup was now at the mercy of the redundant employee they'd cast aside. It was a slow, agonizing, and deeply satisfying unraveling. 2 more weeks passed. The final communication came not from their lawyers, but from a new firm representing Innovatech as primary investors. The tone was no longer aggressive or pleading. It was resigned. They laid out 2 options. Option A was an offer to purchase the patent. This time, the number was staggering. It represented a huge chunk of their remaining capital, a kill fee to salvage what little they had left. Option B was creative. They would oust Derek and Brenda and offer me a significant equity stake, a board seat, and the title of Chief Technology Officer. They were offering me the keys to the kingdom I had already built. I thought about it for a whole day. The fantasy of walking back into that office, taking Derek's chair, and firing Brenda personally was tempting. But did I really want to rule over an empire of ashes? Did I want to fix what they had so thoroughly broken? The power was appealing, but the freedom was more so. I didn't need their throne. I could build my own. I chose option A. The closing was surreal. I sat with Maria across a ridiculously long mahogany table from the lead investor and his lawyers. Derek and Brenda were nowhere to be seen, already scrubbed from the equation. I signed the papers. The wire transfer hit my account before the ink was dry. A number with so many zeros it looked like a typo. With a few strokes of a pen, I went from a redundant engineer to a woman who would never have to work another day unless she chose to. A few months later, the news broke that what remained of Innovatech was acquired by a competitor for pennies on the dollar. Derek and Brenda faded into obscurity, their names now a cautionary tale whispered in Silicon Valley. What would you have done? Taken the massive payout, or taken over the company just to fire everyone who wronged you? Let me know your revenge plan down in the comments. And if you want more stories of professional revenge, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Looking back, the money is the least interesting part of the story. The real victory was the validation. It was the undeniable proof of my own worth after they tried to tell me I was disposable. This whole thing taught me a hard lesson I want to pass on, especially to other creators and women in tech. Know your worth. But more than that, own your worth. Understand the contracts you sign and the value of what you create. Don't let someone's charisma or promises of a team distract you from protecting your own interests. That piece of paper isn't a sign of mistrust. It's a sign of self-respect. I went from being labeled redundant to being financially independent, all because I had the one thing they couldn't take from me: legal ownership of my own creation. They thought they were closing a door on an employee they no longer needed. They had no idea they were locking themselves inside a burning building and handing me the only key. And that's a lesson I'm sure they'll never forget.